All right, we'd like to welcome everyone to the first Man to Man, right? This is a manhood forum where brothers over here in Japan just really get together and chop it up. We don't want to do what a lot of other people who have great forums, great platforms out there are doing. So we want to get a little bit deeper, okay? So we're really only going to discuss one or two topics. I've done a little research on Brother Shakir, who's here with me, and he's done a little bit of research about me. So we want to get a little deeper than kind of what is out there in the media or out there on our, on our social platforms. All right. So first of all, I'm Tak Amaru. I'm the author of 21st Century Japan Decoded. Okay. It's on Amazon. And I guess Brother Shakir can introduce himself and then give us the first question of the day. So, brother, who are you?
Yes, sir. It's a pleasure. The pleasure is all mine. I'm happy to be welcome to your platform, Man to Man. Yes, sir. We need to have some more masculine discussions, no doubt. Your work.
Well, first, brother, tell them who you are a little bit. Tell them a little bit about yourself. Yeah.
Well, I'm the owner of Umoja Productions. It's an audiovisual production company. I'm a musician who's also a composer and a producer. I'm a father of Japanese children, as well as African-American, Asiatic, African-American children. I'm happy to be in a setting in Japan whereby which I can practice my culture, my religion, as well as indulge myself into scholarship, as well as my composing. That was an original you heard of mine called Lit for You at the beginning. So, brother, I'm happy to be on your platform.
Okay, and folks, you got to check him out. This brother's history, his work goes way beyond what he just said right there. Okay, maybe we're going to get a little bit into that in a minute. But go ahead. The first question of the day. What is on your mind, sir?
My brother, my first question is, what prompted you to write this book? Because the more that I read the book, it's a piece of scholarly work that informs myself, and I believe it would inform any non-Japanese person that's living here or that partakes in the society in any particular dimension of the society. It's eye-opening to begin with. Secondly, it's so informative. It's almost like a handbook. It's functional. I can actually walk out the door and put quite a bit of the information here to work. I like books like this.
Great. Okay, well, first of all, thank you for the kind words. And a lot of you almost answered some of it because you said words like handbook, right? And I call it a manual, right? So, but directly over the years, I've received lots of emails from people, mostly Black people, but not only Black people, people who have migrated to Japan, and they have lots of questions, and a lot of them are the complaint side of the game, right? Not always. A lot of times they want advice on, getting girls. That's the biggest one. How you pull girls, how you talk to girls, and stuff like that. But after a while, I started seeing, common denominators, and these are the questions that are really popular. And so after a while, and then living here and seeing brothers and sisters, doing what they do here, I started seeing an inevitable impasse in the mental health, on the mental health side of the game. And then when you start to think about what we already know, what the world knows about Japan, and suicide rates and are skyrocketing, have always been. And also there's a phenomenon called hikikomori. A lot of people know that is when grown people, they just lose it in society. They can't face society anymore. So they decide to punish their parents and they kind of become like homeless people inside their parents' homes, right? And it works on the whole Confucian shame thing where everyone's ashamed of it, so the parents hide it, and it's allowed to go on for years, sometimes decades. You know?
Okay, and you're attributing this to a mental health issue.
Yes, and this and so much more. So Black people are now coming to Japan because there's a lot of career opportunities that are opening up, and they're coming to Japan. And so what's going to stop these Black people from succumbing to the same social maladies that are affecting millions of Japanese people? And when I started asking Black people and talking to people on, along those lines, I started getting a lot of uncomfortable answers, or some people would be frank and be like, no, you really need to write this book. So that's pretty much where it came from.
Well, my brother, I have to admit, one of the first things I noticed, I came here on a contract to perform music. And one of the first things I noticed once I started living in the society is the mental aspect that you just mentioned, the lack of confidence that most Japanese have. I couldn't understand why they tended more towards mental abnormality. And I made a quick diagnosis as a pseudo psychologist, and I attribute it to lack of balance in their serotonin and melatonin. The fact that they're running around with gloves on their arms and umbrellas in the sun, I'm like, you need more sunlight, and you need to maybe spend more time investigating your own culture, investigating your own history, because I found myself knowing a bit more about their culture and history, having lived in China, and them teaching me about Japan, than most of the younger Japanese here.
Well, the Japanese here, they know their culture intrinsically. Right? But if you ask them to explain or even ask any origin of anything, you're going to get question marks. Because again, when I talk about the Japanese complex in the book, after the war, after all of people don't really understand how traumatic Western culture being imposed on Japanese was. It's like, you have to think, not only were Americans the enemy, it wasn't just, it was they were the gaijin, they were the devil, they were called them devils. Like, if you think devil, you think like Elijah Muhammad and stuff, but you never think Japanese people were calling this is in 1940, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
They were like, they're devils, they're evil, they're gaijin, they're inferior.
That gaijin meaning Europeans.
Right. And
I would imagine, because
I'll break that down. But hold on, let me finish this thought. So okay. You have to think now. This was the rhetoric. This was what was being pushed. This was the propaganda. This was what everybody was going on. And then you're going to say, then these bombs get dropped, and then you have this sudden change, right? Because now, the inferior thing is really being looked at, because we can't look. They just, to get destroyed in that manner, and then on top of it, right? So the decimated people are still dying over the months from fallout. It's still not stopping. And then these white demon devils, they're going to come move in and run. For 7 years, they locked Japan down, right? General MacArthur, and nobody could go in or out. And then they trained, they put them to the whip, you know what I'm saying? And changed everything. You know what I'm saying? The jolting, the trauma, like nobody ever addresses this.
Okay, could you go more into detail? In the 7 years that I think you called it J-spec or whatever.
No, J-specs. That's one of the symptoms or the side effects of it.
Okay, but you described MacArthur's army as
well, they called them SCAP, right? They called them SCAP.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. And I kept trying to find.
Yeah, the Supreme Command of Allied Powers. That's what they were called.
Yes. So basically, they're psychologizing the Japanese and actually introducing them to the same thing that the African American had been introduced to in slavery. I would imagine that was the same
subjugation,
modus operandi, the actual psychotrauma that would alter their genetics. You know, if you want to go that deep into it, because
trauma.
Trauma that affects everything.
Right.
Yeah, including your genetic metabolism, your genetics.
You can see it clearly, like even when you talk to Japanese people. Now they're getting much older, but you've been here long enough. Like anybody that was before World War II, they talk about them like they're not even alive anymore. Like
exactly.
The way they, that's Japanese, and you're looking
like they never existed.
But you're from the outside in, you're looking at them like, yo, y'all the same, like, you know. But they really think that they're different now, you know.
Yeah, I saw a picture of the Japan-Russian war of the Japanese generals, who basically look like me and you.
Right.
I mean, your complexion,
right.
My complexion, some much darker, you know. And and they're drinking wine around a table with Japanese uniforms, and I share it with my children often because I want them to know that they're double, they're twice as much, not, you know, that their DNA has been rebooted, you know. So I'm kind of surprised to see them wearing things to keep them from getting dark, umbrellas in the sun, parasols, you know, as if this is a bad thing. So even that becomes like a whitening mechanism, I would imagine, that was implemented here in Japan.
Well, that I mean, anywhere you look, India, the Philippines, Nigeria, Kenya, with all the cake soap. I mean, like this is the age we're in. You know, this is Bronze Age. This is a low level age where it's bizarro world, right? Everything's turned on its head. That said, also, and you know this better than I do, just the angles of the sun now, and just all the stuff that's going on. Like people burn really easily. So a lot of times people, they're burning, you know, they're actually burning. And when you're, because even me, I never had a problem with getting burned anywhere else, but I go out in the sun here at the beach and I got to monitor that. I got to make sure I'm up out that, you know, I can't be, you know, you know, cause it'll start to, I'm like, I remember, what's this sensation? They're like, that's sunburn. I'm like, oh, I never had this before. Like,
right.
Like, what's this new, you know, like, what's this sensation? You know, and so, you know, over here, you close to that bad boy. I don't know what it is, but, you know, even when you're in the States, think about it. I tell Japanese all the time, in June here, like when the days are at their longest, it's dark, like 7:30, 7:20, it's dark. But, you know, like when I was in New York, New Jersey, it'd be like 9:30, almost 9:30, you know, for about a week. And this is lit up, and I'm like, we be out there playing street ball or basketball, and you be happy like a mug, you know.
Yeah, having a ball, man.
Yeah. But in Japan, it's like, you know, 7:30, by 7:20, it's out. You know what I'm saying? So, but it doesn't get like. But then again, in the New Jersey, New York area, it is almost like 4:30 when it gets dark in the winter. That 1 week. And in Japan, it doesn't get like it, you know, it's not as extreme. You know what I'm saying? And I guess that has to do with, you know, where we're located in the Far East as opposed to on, you know, the Western, you know, side of the game.
Yes, sir. It's interesting to me because from time to time, I will hang my winter clothes like on my outside balcony, and I've noticed that my darker clothes from being in the sun my darker jacket, I had to stop doing it because my darker jacket would turn white, and I was like, well, maybe I can wash this, but it doesn't wash off or wash out. It actually, now my brown jacket is all white on one sleeve.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, now, how is this happening? I remember I had a Japanese teacher. She had a master's in Japanese literature, and she would teach me how to speak Japanese masculine form, so I wouldn't be talking like a woman.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. Most cats learn from their girlfriend, and they walk around, they talk, they speak Japanese like women, and they don't know that there's a gender difference.
Yeah, I got a story about that, but I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, but she used to always complain about the chemtrails. Okay, and I was surprised that she noticed it. Because there are a lot of chemtrails in Japan. Anyway, that's a subject for another thing, and that's a subject for another time.
Okay, but on that, the masculine, feminine Japanese, yeah, definitely. If you only talk to most guys, yeah, you meet, because Japan is kind of a closed culture, and the only way you're really going to get in usually is you through some kind of love situation or friendship situation. It's going to usually be with a woman if you're a man. But yeah, I remember when I first came as an adult, my Japanese was janky, and I met this brother. Matter of fact, I just had dinner at the family restaurant. It's but his brother, he was from Gambia, and he was a scholar, and he had passed the EQ level. His Japanese was on point.
Okay.
And so I was like, I was impressive, and I knew him. After a couple of years, though, we went out with one of his students, and the student was like, we're speaking Japanese. She was like, why don't you speak Japanese like him? Talking to the teacher. And this is funny, because I'm like, this guy, I ain't never take no tests. I ain't passed none of all that stuff, And but I'm like, and she's like, no, and she said it. You sound like a woman. You sound like a woman. And she, see, he says boku, ore, like, this is watashi.
Boku and boku no, right?
Yeah. And usually you don't even really say it, but she wouldn't let it go. And I think what it is because maybe he was a little bit too proud about his level. I think that
they will cut you down. Yeah. They will cut you down a notch every chance they get.
But they won't do it directly. They won't do it directly. Exactly. They won't do it like, man, like your skills ain't that nice. Like, they won't do that. Like that's like they won't. There's no dozens. They ain't going. So they do it indirectly. But every time he went to speak, man, she was like, she would start saying it, and it really it started getting on his nerves. It was pretty funny. But there's a definite difference.
So his Japanese, basically, he learned from the women he involved himself with.
Well, I think just basically speaking, when you're coming, especially as a brother coming over here, you're going to get a lot of attention. You're going to get a lot of attention from women, and that and the fact that Japan is pretty much still a closed culture. It's very difficult to make friends with males and get into that level. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? They're going to want to speak English to you. Usually in most cases. Again, it depends on what your situation is, how you come, and what your level is, and everything. But the general example, I'm just giving the general.
Yeah, the women are a bit more open.
No
Even everywhere I've traveled. You've been to Brazil, but everywhere I've traveled, Hong Kong, Taiwan, the first people who wish to befriend you are the females,
especially as a black man.
Exactly, which is interesting because you have to understand who you are in the dynamic of the culture, not to offend the men of the culture. Because you don't know, anyway.
Yeah, if you're not on vacation, that's one thing. But if you're gonna live somewhere, and ultimately you have to have the respect of the men.
If you
got to get down with the men. Yeah.
If you living and working there, I had a Chinese sister that just decided to take me as a man, and because I was having meetings on a regular, she taught me the whole tea ceremony, how to deal with the meeting so that I would leave there with the men's respect when I have these business meetings, okay? And that helped me considerably. I'm telling you, bro. It was like difference between night and day. You know,